Hi everybody, this is Douglas Hamandishe. I'm here and honoured to have Geert Bettinger, the author of the book Moving On by Standing Still, as you can also see in the background there. Why is it so important to have somebody like Geert on this channel talking about his book? It's because I believe that mental health awareness, helping, supporting people going through difficult circumstances and challenges is something that we can all learn and benefit from. Okay, so straight off the bat, Geert, welcome to the UK. And what inspired you to write the book? And tell me a bit about yourself.
Thank you, Douglas, for inviting me to come over to London. I'm very honored to be with you. Who am I? It's a very big question. In a short way, formerly I was a nurse. I worked with children with developmental disabilities. After that, I was a social worker with elderly people. Then I was a social worker in multi-problem families, as they called that time. And after that, I was a therapist for abused children. I was abused by myself, so I know a bit about the feelings. And after that work, I was a teacher in a school for nursing and for care and well-being. So I was a teacher there. And when I was 61, I stopped working in this way, and I wrote my book. And of course, I have a special goal with my book.
Okay, so what really inspired you to write this book?
Yes. It has to do with my childhood, of course. As I told you, I was abused, and the abusing for me is not a problem anymore. But at that time, I didn't have words, or I couldn't talk about what was happening when I was 10 years old. So what I showed was so-called problem behavior. I steal and I fight and I was a ref to my parents, etc., etc. So I got a lot of punishment because people in my environment, they think I'm a problem child. But I was not a problem child, but I was a child with a problem. In the first place, I was a child. So, and after that period, when I came in social work and the nursery work, I saw many children, I saw many people, many problem people with problem behavior. And I couldn't stand this way of view because they, in the first place, they are children, they are persons, they are people. And they give signals, like me. Stealing was not a problem, it was a signal of something deeper. And that's why I insist to, no, it is not insisting, it's my mission to let people see, please don't judge problem behavior, don't judge behavior, but try to find out, try to make contact with the person, what's behind that behavior. Sure. And that is the passion. Since I wrote this book, since that time, I come all over the world because this is the way I want people to look at people who deserve attention.
Sure. If you can just talk a little bit more about signaling type behaviors, and how can you identify when somebody's actually signaling something that could be a sign of distress, sign of ongoing or pending psychosis? Because there's a lot of information that we send back and forth all the time naturally. So what tools are out there to help us?
Maybe it is not so easy. When you see this behavior, then is that the problem? If so, everybody already knew it. But even people who don't show aggressive behavior or don't show depression, even people who don't show anything, it's also behavior. People sitting in a corner and nobody noticed these people. They say, oh, he's nice with him. No, for me it's important. The moment you judge the behavior, at that moment, as a care worker or a parent or a teacher or a social worker or a nurse, at the moment you judge the behavior, that for me is a signal to you. Wait, something. Why do I judge this behavior? That is for me the moment to get more involved, to get more, not involved, get more in contact with the person, because I think that is the most important thing to do.
Sure, and that's extremely powerful. From my experience working in mental health across various wards, community teams as well, and managing, I can testify to that in the sense that trying to treat somebody as an individual is very, very difficult, first and foremost, but you need to first understand who they are
Yes.
in relation to
Yes. Yeah.
the behavior that they're exhibiting. Because for myself, when I'm happy, I behave in a certain way that's unique to myself. And when I'm in distress, I also show signs that are completely different from somebody else. It's how then do you find the time? If you're working with your own children, for example, there is a danger. And I want to know what's your take on how can parents allow a child to be themselves instead of trying to conform to the preconceived way of doing things. How can they be themselves so that the parent can make an informed decision in terms of how is my child behaving?
What everybody needs, and the child specifically, is needs a very, very safe environment. You know, what happened with me, what happened with many children, is that's not a problem, but to keep it inside. So how parents can help the children to create a safe environment. In this house, you can talk about everything. You can talk about all your the things you come through the day, the sorrows, the anxiousness. You can talk about everything, and we don't judge. We want to listen. Also in the schools, many teachers say, "Oh, he's so HDLD. How do you call this? ADHD. So he has to have special therapy because it's a problem for the class." No, please try to organize a safe environment. And safetyness is the most important thing to help people. That's also for people you work with, I'm sure.
Sure, I agree. Within the NHS, within that environment, creating that safe space is a challenge. We have new models of care, new types of wards being built all the time. But the basics in terms of creating a safe environment is making sure that that time you spend with the person in need is protected. You're not distracted with your bleep going off. You're not having distressing images behind you to distract the actual conversation. You're actually focused on the individual for that particular period of time.
You're interested in the person?
Indeed, so I think being interested in the person is the fundamental quality in health or care. Because you cannot care by numbers. You can learn how to dance by counting your steps. You can do that.
Of course.
But to the person observing them will see you counting your steps. When you care for people who are going through crisis, they too are very intuitive. They're watching you as well. So if they know that you're going through the motions, as it were, step by step going through the motions, that will also lead them to also be more guarded with you.
How come that you decided to take more time for the persons and not to run like many nurses still do? Why you did this?
I think for myself, time was something I found a challenge working within the wards. And I was on the wards full time. How can I provide the best care within the parameters of my shift? I was lucky enough to be trained by some very, I wouldn't say revolutionary, but very forward-thinking practitioners who basically told me it's okay to postpone or to continue a conversation the next time you're on shift, opposed to rushing a difficult conversation. It's important to discuss through with the patient, acknowledging their difficulties, and then agreeing to meet at another time. And that also gives the individual time to prepare for that conversations, because I think as professionals we risk always automatically assuming that somebody is prepared to engage and have a conversation with us just because we have knocked on their door or just because they're in a hospital environment. They also should have the ability to control.
Taking time is also an attitude. It's not only time on the wallet, on the watch, but it's also an attitude, taking time.
Yeah, I think it's a time. For me, I've always been fascinated and generally interested in people.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, and that allows me to feel comfortable to go deeper in conversations.
Is that the way you wanted to be treated also? But as a person? Or?
Indeed, so for me, it's fundamental. If somebody is not interested in me,
Okay.
I will not be interested in you.
Beautiful.
You know, so again, our conversation is really blocked. In order for you to engage, which is why I like the book so much, moving on by standing still, is you allow a situation whereby the professional or the carer, the family member, whoever the case may be, give something of them also into the conversation. It's not a one-way street whereby you will ask somebody going through crisis everything about themselves.
You agree with me or not? I don't know. The client is also a kind of professional.
Indeed. So the way I've always looked at it is, if you take the old propeller planes that have two engines on either side of the wing, this is how all health services should be built upon. You can fly a plane with one engine, but you bank heavily to one side, and eventually you will get yourself into a spin and crash.
Beautiful metaphor.
Okay, you need both those engines firing and working in collaboration with each other. You know, so you have one person who's expert based upon their lived experience, giving the respect to that lived experience. And you have the healthcare professional who is expert based upon the academia. They've demonstrated they're able to study, regurgitate information, but we all know within the profession of mental health particularly, there's always nuances. Everyone's presents depression slightly differently from somebody else. And when we acknowledge that, we can learn more, and the sweet spot is that collaborative experience between two, and even including carers and friends, family, whoever who's in the circle.
I hear you many times saying collaboration. That is the key word.
Collaboration and the rules of things. For me, I'm supposed to be interviewing you, but you interview me. It's all good. The collaboration for me is it's based upon the rules of engagement. If you take a look at the common paradigm problem facing patients at the moment, or anyone that's going through crisis, is they ultimately believe that there are the lesser in the conversation. They believe because they do not understand the jargon of health, they cannot contribute to their own care. And so I always push within technology products I work with and in my training is to empower the patient by using simplified language, plain English. Then we all get it.
So sometimes you have to make a step backwards, so you give more room, more space. The person can empower himself more.
That's correct, yeah. And it's frightening, to be honest. As a service whereby you got a ward full of fully empowered nurses. For me, that is a beautiful thing. But to many people, they don't know how to behave or how to support patients that are fully empowered. But if you take a look at what has happened over the last 100 years in society, globally, you've had women's rights being addressed with the suffragettes. You had civil rights movements in terms of addressing racial discrimination. You've had disability movements in place, and also patient empowerment is just following through on that natural progression whereby we leave nobody behind. Everybody has a voice.
This has consequences for our attitude, no? As the
Most
professional,
definitely.
no?
Most definitely. I think my role now, when I work in the capacity of a nurse, is no longer the bastion of all knowledge. No, I'm more the signposter, because I know services that can help this individual to get better. So I have the ability to signpost, I have the ability to teach, I have the ability to coach.
So you do reflect all the time on what you're doing. That's what I feel when we know each other a bit,
Yeah.
just from Skype,
Yeah.
not like this is the first time, but what I like in you is you're reflecting on everything you're doing, and I think reflection is very important for everybody, not only for professionals, for everybody. But professionals, for me, they have to reflect more, but how do we reflect? And I think the education, the nursery education, social work education, psychology education, more reflection. Why do I like I do? And that is why I wrote this book, because reflection gives you a mirror to yourself. And the best mirror is mostly the client, if you are open for that. The client, for me, is the best mirror I could get. And if you want to look in my mirror, if you want to look in my life, I'm sure you can help me in a very good way.
Sure. Within the UK NHS service now, we're trying to integrate our care, so it's care outside the boundaries of a hospital. So by that we mean integrating teams with community services, social work, schools, all coming together.
Yes.
Is there any advice of how these integrated teams should work in supporting an individual going through crisis?
I worked in that team. I coached that teams also. That in the Netherlands you have several teams in the neighborhoods. There is one danger in that, because when you put 6 or 7 professionals together around one table, they are more and more talking about the person they want to care of. For me, the advice is sometimes introduce the person in that communication, and not talking with, because 6 or 7 professionals together, you know what can happen.
Sure.
Who's the best professional?
Yes.
I recognize that in many meetings. Yeah, but I think from my profession it's okay. But what I do as a coach in that say, why you think you are the best professional?
Sure.
Why you visit him every day? Why like that? That is my way of coaching, and that is the danger of the teams in the neighborhoods. Sure. It can be empower the person, but more invite the person.
Sure.
That is the way I would like to do.
Sure. And another good question. Well, you can tell me if it's a good question or not.
I like you, so your questions are all very good.
Thank you. Another question is, what then do you say to a healthcare professional that doesn't fully understand or doesn't fully embrace the power of recovery and patient-centered type of care? What do you say?
I didn't understand what you mean.
When by a professional who is trained in the treatment model of doing things, I'm the professional, you're the patient, I'll deliver care to you. Okay, and then you have, through your book, like the book that we're reading here, approaches whereby you put the patient at the center of the care. And with that will be interventions that are driven by the patient themselves. So we have sometimes resistance from practitioners who are taught in the old ways of caring. You know, how do you get them to embrace the new patient-centered way?
The view, you mean this view?
Yeah, the view. How do you change the view? How do you get them to put aside the old way of treating? To embrace
maybe I don't know. I don't have the golden tip, but maybe just ask. Stop. This is not a good answer. Maybe you ask the professional. Tell me, why you like this person? Not why you like this problem to solve, but why you like this person you want to work with. Maybe ask more to the professional. Well, what do you think the client wants you to help with? And did you ask the client, is this the way you want to be helped? Is this the answer you want to get from me? That could be a way. More equally. And maybe you ask the client, what do you want to know about me?
So you're bringing it back.
Yes.
You're bringing
What
it
do you
back.
know about me? And I know when a client asks a nurse will answer. But when a client asks a psychiatrist, so I never heard, what do you want to know about me?
Sure.
And what do you know about me? For me, it gives me more comfortable feeling, because we are more equal. You know, it's like a dentist. A dentist is a very technical profession, very technical. But I like to just to have to shake hands and to know, but talking, social talking. But social talking is also important, because he comes on inside me, and to come inside me,
It's evasive.
it's impressive. And inside my feelings is more impressive. So I asked my dentist, I got a new dentist because I removed, and I asked him, what are you afraid of? What are you scaring of? And he told me he was afraid in the dark. And only this, what he told me, he could do everything with me.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe that's more, because it feels more, okay, you have also your weak points.
That's correct, yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
And you want to know every weak point from me. Tell me what you like, tell me what you want, tell me what you're afraid of. It's that is weak points, you know? If you show me your weak point, it feels more comfortable.
But we call that normalizing or humanizing the patient experience.
Yes.
You know,
Beautiful.
what would you say to your friends who are going through crisis? It should be the same approach you have to somebody that you're delivering care to.
Yes,
There should be no difference.
Yes, yes.
I was taught this term as well that I use, which is called the power or the law of equivalent exchange.
Of the
Equivalent
yes.
exchange, whereby if you really want to engage with somebody, you also have to give up something of yourself
Of course.
of equal value. And the value, who measures it, what the value is agreed between you and the patient.
Yes.
And it's unwritten.
It's unique.
It's unique. It's unique. You might share with a patient, for example, I have a son that also plays football. I know what it's like. You know, it varies, but you have to give something of yourself
Yes.
into that
Yes.
conversation
Yes.
in order for you to engage. Also, what's your views on technology in terms of the way this movement is going in empowering patients? Is there any role that technology can be used to improve this collaboration between patient and...
What do you think about? Just help me.
What I
Because
think-
I don't have anything with technology, but maybe it's not a good answer. But for me, it's a complete different world.
it's
But maybe you can help me.
For instance, in wards, you see a lot of young people joining forums online to help manage their mental health illness.
Mm-hmm.
You find there's a lot of initiatives now, so you can have your GP consultations on your mobile device, so you
Yes.
don't
in that way.
no longer need
In that
to
way.
go
Okay.
to the GP practice. So again, you might have access to GPs all around the world potentially to see and help.
I'm going to disappoint you.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Probably. It's not my way. It's not my way. Even if a client called me by phone, I said, if you like, I would come over. I want to drink a cup of coffee with you, because I want to see you in an other way. And if a client doesn't want that, it's possible. Of course, I respect that. Of course. But it's not my way. Now I come over to England just to meet you. I saw you on the Skype several times.
Yes.
But now for the first time I feel real contact with you. That for me is important. Maybe for you it's okay by Skype. But for me it feels much more comfortable. So it's my way of having contact. And as I told you, contact for me is the most important. It's basic to try to help people and to try to be involved in the problems of people.
Sure. No, that's a good answer. I think that the quality of the engagement
For me, it's really important.
for individuals that are going through crisis. Again, there's a toolkit of ways of communicating.
Mm-hmm, of course.
You have to pick the right tool that's good for
It's
yourself.
personal.
I think as services evolve, we have to marry and match the demands of our customers, service users, patients. We must have a solution for each way they want to engage.
You know, maybe it's this. Maybe a good friend of mine, Nadine Jans, she's a psychologist in Vancouver, and she is also counseling by internet. And she's a very good friend of mine, and I met her 2 times in real life. For me, it's a completely different person since I met her in real life. And she gives counseling by internet, and for me it feels you never have real time. It's a signal. Maybe it's not true, but when you only want to talk with me by internet or from your chair, for me it feels you don't have much time for me. Because it must be very organized and it's just a feeling, but for me it's important.
Sure, I totally agree. We had a conversation earlier in terms of how should we set up this shot, and I have a bench, and we agreed not to use the bench because we are not in Egypt, and this is not 5,000 years ago. So we don't want to be facing like this. Yeah, we wanted to have a better way of sitting, presenting, having that conversation. I think there's something that's missing when you have some of these Skype conversations in terms of how you present yourself, how you manage your time. You know, you cannot. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in that arena. So I would like to close in thanking Geert to coming over to my humble abode. Humble abode.
New word I learned.
Again, anybody that's going through psychosis, any mental health problems at all, even challenging situations in terms of behaviour, if you're looking after somebody that's going through some sort of crisis, I cannot guarantee enough this book by Geert Bettinger, Moving On by Standing Still. Being able to embrace silence and watching things unfold and not prejudging, being humanistic, collaborative, all these things that are talked about in this book in a very accessible way.
Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.